Hey everybody, this is Perch. I did a video about the hole in the market, and the basic kind of premise of that video, if I was to summarize it in a sentence or two, is that there are you know a percentage of fans of comic customers who, outside of just normal aging out or leaving comics for natural reasons, have abandoned comics. And my premise is they're not coming back. And I think we like to say things in comments, and there's several of you made these comments in the video, and this is an opinion piece, so you can have it for opinion. I don't it doesn't bother me, and I'm interested to hear opinions that disagree with me, so it's not even a bad thing. But a number of you were like, well, no, but if they did this and this and this, and if they apologized to the fans, then those people would come back. I don't think so, because I think what we're seeing is not kind of a group of people who said, "Man, I'm fed up with comics. I'm going to take a pause for a while." I think we have a group of people who said, "I'm fed up with comics, and it's 2 years later. I'm still upset, and I'm just done." I think if potentially if some of this had been caught earlier, like 10 years earlier, I think things might be different. But I think now an audience is just gone, and so my premise was that this hole is gone. You either need to accept that the market is now smaller, or you need to fill that hole with something new. But what? So anyway, here's this person's writing a disagreement. Well, no, I mean just a reaction. This is a reaction mail to that video, and that's good because I like. I'm interested in different opinions on this. It says, Reverend Dr. Perch, love it. I'm a regular viewer of your channel, and your recent video on the hole in comics market was the best that I have seen. However, I do have a minor disagreement. First, let me say what I agreed with. You very clearly stated the problem. The guys watching YouTube videos are gone. That part of the audience is not coming back. Marvel and DC need to replace them, and what they've been trying to do for the last decade is not working. I do not think that any of those points are especially refutable. Once the regular habit of buying comics is broken, it is my experience that it is never coming back. The hooks that keep you coming into the comic shop every week or two are your pull list, your relationships with the retailer and the other customers, and your activity on social media are harder to reestablish than create in the first place. Second, a younger audience is pretty clearly the correct segment to target for growth. Younger people are more open to purchasing decisions than older people. They have almost certainly read tankobon formatted comics, so they're familiar with the medium, if not the form factor. That audience would almost certainly want the most meat and potatoes comic storytelling. Where I disagree with you is that the MCU, the Arrowverse, and the rest are not essential in recruiting that audience. All right, interesting. Um, I like the way it's laid out so far, and as somebody who mostly agrees with me, I would love to get some people who disagree, who are, well, put it this way, I'd love to get a coherent email from somebody who believes that toxic fans are toxic fans, that you have a group of people who are racist and sexist, that the kind of move into more slice of lifetime comics are a good idea, and and they disagree with my assessment about the hole in comics, or basically the opinion of those guys are gone, screw them, I don't want them anyway. I'd like to get that argument. Unfortunately, people who have that perspective, they tend to either not write in, they either post on Reddit that I'm a giant racist, or when they do write in, it is the most trash mail you can imagine. It is like borderline unintelligible. And but I there's a way to argue with me, and there is a point out there that I think can be made that is that basically kind of refutes a lot of my points from that perspective, but people don't do it. I'd love to see somebody give it a shot. Anyway, back to the mail. It says, put simply, I do not believe that anyone buys a comic solely based on the cover with the intention of reading the story inside anymore. It is a function of an advertisement for the interior contents, or its function as an advertisement for the interior contents has been lost. Newer customers will be buying almost exclusively based on prior familiarity with the characters from other media. If you see a Green Arrow comic, then a new reader will only buy it if they both know and like Green Arrow from the CW show, the Brave and the Bold cartoon, or some other source. Moreover, this potential reader will need to have liked the property in their prior exposure. The inability of DC to keep a Teen Titans series on the shelf when that property has been getting continuous exposure to kids for over a decade is extremely damning. Converting a 7 to 12-year-old Teen Titans Go viewer into a 13 to 18-year-old Teen Titans comic book reader should be the easiest conversion in the world. Um, Let me pause there for a second. That's a really good point. And I do think, put it this way, I think it's a yes and kind of argument. It's not, it is an option. It's not the only option. But I do think if you have, and this is where Marvel gets it. Marvel used to actually get this right a lot because there'd be cartoons that Marvel would sponsor or promote or license out to. And the cartoons were clearly aimed at a, 7 to 12-year-old range. And then the comics were just a bump older than that. And they did a really good job of feeding one into the other. And they don't today. So today you get comics that are in the style or in theory, based off of the cartoon. I actually am certain this probably exists, but there's this new Spider-Man cartoon out there that is on Disney Plus. And I feel it's one where Norman Osborn is black and everybody lost their fucking minds over it. But anyway, that one, if there isn't a comic book based on that already, I'm sure there is. I'm just forgetting it in my senility. But the person who will make that comic will not make it a touch older. They'll make it kind of exactly the same writing that you see in the cartoon will be in the comics, except somehow dumber. It will actually feel younger, not older. I think the point that this person's making here around Teen Titans Go, you had a pretty decent amount of kids who came to know these characters and probably know Teen Titans better than the Justice League in a lot of ways. And so that was a very natural audience that if you just put a comic out that was, one notch older than that to kind of grab that audience and say, all right, now you're going to mature into the big leagues. And this is, what it would look like if it was just a little bit, more mature. That would be the most natural thing in the world. And DC royally screwed it up. Anyway, there's one more paragraph to this mail and then we'll wrap it up. But this person's making a really good point. It says, on that basis, I would suggest that Titans Volume 5 is an ideal example of what DC and Marvel should not be doing. I have nothing against Tom Taylor or Nicola Scott, but a large and young potential audience that did not come off the sidelines is a strong indicator of taking exactly the wrong direction. And it is. And this is a nuanced point. But look, I talk to comic creators from time to time and they'll go, oh, so we're supposed to just handcuff ourselves to what's going on the TV and we can only do that. No, of course not. You're being, intentionally thick. No, what you should do is say, all right, what's the spirit? What's the vibe? What's the emotion around Teen Titans Go? What's the atmosphere around it? Are there recognizable characters there? Okay. Now we're going to go into the comic. What we're going to do is we're going to take all these elements and we're just going to mature them a little bit. We're not going to go in a completely new direction. We're not going to try and, introduce wacky new characters. We're actually going to use the same characters, but we're going to, evolve them a little bit. Maybe, we put, Raven and Beast Boy in a relationship. We're just going to make it like, hey, here's what happens when they grow up. Because pretty universally in different cultures, people are suckers for here's what happens later. And an example of this is the Days of the Future Past storyline. Just those 2 issues are very fondly remembered by X-Men fans who were reading comics in the 70s. But here's the thing, and this may be heresy to people who love John Byrne and Chris Claremont, and I certainly enjoy all those comics, but the Days of the Future Past, those 2 issues, they weren't great. Go back and read them. They're not, look, they're way better than what we have today. Don't get me wrong. But they were some of the weaker parts of the Claremont Byrne run. But what you saw was this glimpse into the future. You saw the characters older. You saw the next stage of these characters' advancement. And people loved it, and it's why the X-Men has gone back so many times to Days of Future Present, Days of Future Past again, Days of Future Present. All these different things where you get these potential glimpses of how the character is going to mature and age. My God, that is what you do with Titans. You would have had a very successful cartoon, and you put a comic out that's like, and here's what would happen a few years later when they're older and mature, and two of them are hooking up, and like that's what you need to do. You need to give the audience a bridge between here's what you liked as a kid, and now here's something you can like as an adult. And it's very clearly an obvious answer. That does not mean you're tying yourself to the cartoon. It doesn't mean that you can't be creative. It means that you're very naturally taking the push that the cartoon was giving you and doing something with it. And it's a massive missed opportunity. Anyway, really good mail. Thank you very much for it. Um, I mean, just well said. And come on, guys, disagree with me more. It's fun. I mean, I say a lot of dumb things, so have at it. Thanks for listening.